Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Learn the Secrets of Expert Agility with CA and Forrester in conjunction with projectmanagement.com. My name is Andy Jordan and I'm going to be the moderator of this session and I will hand over to our speakers in just a couple of moments, but a couple of admin things that I just want to run through with everybody. First of all, this webinar is being recorded and you will be sent a link to the recording about 24 hours after the end of the webinar, so sometime tomorrow. You will get instructions there on how to access the recording, so if you want to share it with colleagues or if you missed part of the presentation today, you'll be able to catch up there. That same email will also include instructions on how you can access the slides that we're going through today, so you will be able to get a copy of those. This webinar is also available for a PDU, and I will give you information on the PDU process at the end and give you the categories and that for that. And also, there will be time in the presentation for questions. So we've got about 45 minutes or so of presentation, and then we'll have 10-15 minutes of questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to type those into the GoToWebinar console that you have on your screen, and we will get to as many of them as we can before the top of the hour. Finally, the sound for this webinar is through your computer, so if it seems a bit quiet or if it's a little bit too loud for you, try adjusting the computer settings and you should be okay. So with that said, let me introduce our two speakers. We're going to start in just a moment with Diego, but before I introduce him, let me just introduce Ryan Polk, who will be our second speaker. He's the VP of Product Management at CA Technologies. He is prior to joining CA, he came from Rally during the acquisition of last July, and prior to his current role, Ryan was the VP of Product Management at Rally. Previously, Ryan was a Rally transformation consultant, and he's been involved as a leader in more than 25 large-scale agile transformations. By tapping into his more than 20 years of experience in the technology field and an educational background in organizational behavior, Ryan brings a unique whole systems perspective to transforming technology organizations. And Ryan will be joining us in about 20-25 minutes or so. But prior to that, let me introduce you to our first speaker, Diego Lo Giudice. He is the Vice President, Principal Analyst serving the Application Development and Delivery Professionals for Forrester. Diego has been with Forrester since July of 2005, and he primarily contributes to and advises on Forrester's offerings for application development and delivery professionals. He partners with Forrester's global application leaders and is a leading expert on SDLC processes and practices, covering topics such as agile development, agile and lean transformations, agile development sourcing strategies and services, agile testing practices and tools, DevOps, and software testing and quality, with a key focus on systems of engagement. Diego also covers software delivery metrics, artificial intelligence, and open source governance. His 28 years of industry experience, in addition to application development, allow him to give expert advice in change management programs for optimizing the overall modern application delivery process, execute technology management assessments, review technology management strategies, and make comparisons. He also has experience in complex mission-critical project and client engagement management. So with no further ado, Diego, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and good morning to everybody there in the US. Good afternoon to the Europeans, and good evening to any Asia-Pac folks that might be still awake and attending this webinar. I want to first thank Computer Associates for inviting me to share this, to share my research in the agile space. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing my recent research in that I've been doing here in Forrester, and I run a survey every 2 years, and most of the results of that survey are going to be leveraged in this presentation. And the focus is really on the adoption, how agile is adopted at scale, right? We're over the question if agile is the right thing to do. It's more how to do it in the right places, and how our organization's scaling it. So, but I always like to give it a context, and the reason of why we're even here talking about agile and software development, and the reason is very simple, and I think under all of our eyes, it's it's what we call in Forrester, it's the age of the customer. Customers are really becoming, are the power, are at the center stage of any business, and they determine which, business is going to be successful, which services are going to be successful, which technology is going to be successful. They choose based on the experience that they get with those services, products. And many organizations have been going through what we call digital transformation, this digital disruption going on in the marketplace as well. Digital is all over us, and this is not just about having a mobile application or where you're porting an existing app to the mobile, or you're you're addressing just a new channel. But it's really more strategic than that. It's changing, the business processes, re-engineering them, adding new touch points, and completely opening up new opportunities for your company. And this is like Delta, who has engaged and start a digital transformation program 5 years ago. They've improved what we call in Forrester, that we have we call it a digital customer experience index. And they've improved that index to a point where now they are the second largest airline in the US. They used to be third, and they did that really by focusing a lot on improving the experience of their customers. And an example is, you don't just book intercontinental flights on the fly with through the mobile, but you actually can do things like which I did, which was an amazing thing, which is you can connect, you can fix your connections if there's a disruption on the way over to the US. I was landing, my flight got cancelled, next flight got cancelled, and I could figure all that out and solve it before I even landed and got out to the gate. So instead of standing up in a line, I was lucky enough to get a new connection on another flight, and that was for me the best thing I could do at that moment. It was great in that in that moment, and that type of experience requires a pretty heavy re-engineering, requires new transformation of customer experience and customer journey maps. So, but digital is not just about, many people think it's around the consumer B2C only, but it's, we say it's definitely disrupting there, but it's a tsunami even in the B2B space, we say. So it hits, things as well, and not just small things like phones or appliances at home through sensors, but even big things like airplane engines. So Rolls-Royce and General Electric don't feel they're in the business of building engines anymore. They sell hours of propulsion. That's a digital service. They too have gone through a digital transformation, and the CEO of GE keeps saying, I wasn't, it's interesting that I find myself managing a digital company. I thought, I would be managing a manufacturing company. I'm actually managing a digital company. He's hiring thousands of software developers. And this is not just, these are just two examples, and I could come up with other, dozens of other examples of clients, banks, insurances. But if you don't want to take my word for it, look at the numbers. The numbers show, and this is, show already that we're in an age where this is disrupting all types of industries, from industrial products, construction, and engineering, which are kind of the lowest disrupted markets. 60% of their executives, even though it is a low, we might think it's a low disrupted market, 60% of those leaders in that industry think that they are being massively or moderately or somewhat disrupted by digital. Then, of course, as you go up higher in these numbers, you'll see how insurance, financial services, government, media, all industries are affected by it one way or the other, and or in a less or more aggressive way. So nobody is immune to this. You're not. It doesn't matter which industry you're in. You're not immune to this. And so, at this point, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, that's all great. What does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Well, what is it that makes a business digital? And, I think it's quite obvious to me that it is the software that we build. It's the applications. It's the so-called modern applications. It's the apps as well. It's those 5-star apps. It's basically software. We're in the software business. It doesn't matter which industry you're in the software business. Software is the brand. And so we see that, you hear this in different ways, different slogans, but it's really true. It's software that makes the difference these days. And it will be more happening going forward. with more automation happening. And so if that's the case, then we all, it doesn't matter which industry you're from, doesn't matter what type of company you are, you have to become excellent at planning, development, testing, and delivering applications and software for your business if you want to succeed in the market, if you want to lead lead and grow into this market and get new clients and make and keep happy the ones that you currently have. So that's basically why we're here to talk about Agile, because so far I think it is the best answer in the marketplace that we have available today. It's been out there for about 13 years, and but it's still the best thing we can do to improve the way we develop and deliver software. You can see that in the data of my survey, which shows that it's now penetrated in IT organizations, even at the IT central enterprise level. That means scaling it also. 69% even internally use Agile. It used to be that it was mostly focused on the business divisions, small business divisions, front-end leading groups of organizations, and now it's also central, getting into the central areas. But it's also used across different industries. It's not just software product companies and system integrators. It's obviously also end user clients, and it's for different types of development, not just custom development where it used to be. It's also for packaged. I'm having more and more inquiries around SAP clients that want to use some form of Agile to deliver software faster within even the SAP world. And you can see that 47% of the respondents of this survey were actually from were primarily doing packaged application software development. But even in the PLM, which is very known to be a V-curve type of industry. But of course, it's not just Agile. It's what we're seeing, the recent trends around DevOps. It's continuous delivery. It's cloud. It's even the recent AI, machine learning, deep learning. All these value and new ways of measuring values and analytics playing a very important role in all of this. But it's it's the convergence of all these things together that, driven with an Agile process, with a lot of agility in organizations, that helps organizations, leading organizations, create great software, great applications for their clients. So let's look a little bit at some data of the survey. You can see that now. I mean, the data reflects this already. I've been doing this since 2011, but you can see that it's the proportion of professionals that have more than 4 years of Agile adoption at their firms has increased significantly. It's 40%. And that's just showing how, and besides these numbers, by the way, I do like 60 to 80 inquiries a quarter, and I ask all the clients, even if the inquiries are for testing and quality, which is another area that I cover, no client that I talk to would say, no, I'm not doing some form of some initiative on Agile. The question is whether they've scaled it or not. That's a different story. We're going to get into that. But everybody is recognizes the value and the value of the approach and how it's helping them improve the way they can respond to business and deploy software faster. You can also see here that over half of the respondents have scaled Agile to more than 50% of their teams, and even 24% of them have scaled it to all of their teams. And if you crank through the data, I don't have time to comment on all of the details of the data, but if you crank through the data, you'll see that yes, if it's 100%, usually it's more like the small medium companies, but very large companies are way into introducing Agile with a large number of teams, scaling it through a large number of teams, and it also is taking time to do that, right? This doesn't happen overnight. If you cross-check this data with the previous one, you'll see that some organizations, it does take more than 3 to 5 years for organizations to kind of get to scale Agile throughout the organization. And what are the typical, again, it's been out there for 13 years, but still the issues for adopting Agile keep being top number one issue is the people behavioral change, right? There's a lot of change going on when you are introducing Agile. This is not a project, it's a program, it's a transformation program. So that is really a crucial aspect that if you're not dealing with it, it becomes an impediment possible failure, I would say, or slows down the time it will take to introduce Agile in the organization more, to become more Agile. Another important aspect is having the business involved. The lack of product owners from the business. I would say, I would even ask myself, why are you doing Agile if business is not involved in making, in leading those the development and delivery activities, and prioritizing what's more important and what's less important, and what can be deferred, and how things need to look and how they need to run, even involving users in that, right? And so that's another impediment, because some organizations don't get that, have a problem getting proper product owners from the business involved in the projects. And the third, and again, these are not just all of them, but the top three that I like to highlight, because besides these numbers, they are the ones that that clients claim major pains with, is lack of cross-functional teams. In other words, Agile works, and works really well when you've got a team of people that can collaborate a lot, and they can make decisions fast, and they don't need to escalate for permission, to ask for permission for making decisions, and all the important stakeholders are involved in the value stream, so that things can move. The throughput can be fast, and we can deliver and deploy things faster. There's other issues here you can read by yourself, but those are really the top three things that I think organizations have to deal with, and there's more, of course, in terms of elements, but that's what the data showed. And when you look at overall where we are from an industry perspective, so organizations are say we're agile, we're being agile. I tried to clarify that, what it means, and this is more at the team level, right? This is looking at what are the good things about organizations, what are the good practices so that you can be more agile. Well, it's definitely, what I look at is, they have to be capable of reducing time it takes to deliver software into production, so shorter iterations. It's instead of a 6-month delivery, it's a 2 to 4 weeks delivery, or even daily, or whatever. It depends on the maturity level. But it's the ability to have teams that are collaborating and are sharing and their objectives very clearly, and communicating a lot through some form of mechanism. In this case, it could be daily Scrum meetings, but that's what we asked in the survey, of course. Product owner involved is the other important aspect. And early and frequent feedback, and together with transparency, those are like the 5 key things, I would say. If you're doing those in the upstream of Agile, with project management, basically aspects of Agile, then that will help. That will help those teams improve what they were doing, improve the way they develop and deliver software, and they plan for the software. But we find that the numbers say that 51% of the organizations are actually doing those, and you can see, how much of the practices they're doing in that upstream. Now, unfortunately, what happens is that we've been doing Agile for quite some time, and initially, most of the organizations do focus on that upstream part of the software development lifecycle process within teams. And it's only been recently that people have starting also to, in parallel, add other practices like continuous integration, continuous delivery, or other Agile testing engineering aspects like test-driven development. And so I call that downstream activities of Agile. Some people call it DevOps, or Agile for the operations is another way of calling this. But 24% do most of those 3 practices in the downstream. And so if you look at throughout who's doing Agile all the way through, it's only 50%. So 15% are doing both these 5 practices, and at least these 5 practices in the upstream, at least these 3 practices in the downstream. So they're kind of really automating, and they're really doing, and in addition, if you look at the data, they are doing some level of portfolio planning, and some higher level release planning, and planning and mapping that down to the team. So it shows that, one, it can be done. In that 15%, you have also medium and large organizations. On the other hand, it does show this is not easy, right? It takes effort, it takes tools, technologies, practices, good people to succeed with the scaling Agile in an organization, and scaling it not just in more teams, but also adding more practices to what they're doing, and doing more of the different Agile practices. So when we ask the question around cross-functional teams, what the typical agile team structure is, this is what came out and how I illustrated it. So there's usually a core team of people, which includes always a developer, product owner, scrum master, or tester, or a product or a project manager. Depends how people call these roles, but those are the 4 key roles that are always in the team, making the core, being part of the core team. And then there are, in large enterprises, medium enterprises, but even in smaller ones, there are other roles which are kind of, I call it, into the extended team that are satellite, but they get added into the team. So, and it depends where you are, right? If you can be, UX, there can be UX designers, can be architects, it can be operations managers. These people can join the team, can stay within the team for a different period of time, or they come and go, but basically that is the formation of a cross-functional team that will really help connect the upstream to the downstream. But organizations are also doing what we call, what I call is water agile. We used to call this water scrumful. And basically what it really means is, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. It can, if it's done right. And so what we see usually happening when this is done right and is working is that organizations are working on, defining a business case, doing portfolio management of those various business cases that they have, and then working out, pulling epics together into releases, planning those releases, and then getting to plan eventually the sprints, and only then, that's the water part bit of this, and only then eventually kick off this, the teams, the agile teams, with a project initiation or sprint 0, and that's when testing, development, design, requirements iteration, all that happens in an agile way, right? Using Scrum techniques, using Kanban, using XP, but testing has to be part of that. That's why you see here dev test ops, because it really is crucial that testing is involved in that project and testers are integrated with developers. And then then 2 things can happen. You can either deploy directly into production, or they actually stage into releases. And both of those cases are great and work, because you still get feedback from the users and from the business people. But if you deploy directly into production, now you're going into you're releasing things faster. And so water agile done that way, where there is upfront planning. We like planning. Agile is not against planning. It's really crucial to have planning, but you have that iterative process where requirements, design, development, testing, and integration testing happens all all together. For agile, for large organizations, that is really what works. And this is how I represent actually that agile bit. It's within each sprint, you're going to have unit testing done, functional testing, integration testing done iteratively, progressively, where developers and testers are integrated into those teams with test data that is fed to them in a dynamic way, and is, life cycle of the data is always cleaned up when you finish a sprint and you start another sprint. But basically it's all happening within a sprint, and working software ready to go in production is truly, is delivered and ready to deploy. And so if when you look at outside the team, what really what I'm saying with what are agile for is really that these frameworks that organizations are using, like SAFe and Nexus, which is probably most of you know about SAFe, Dave Liffinwell's SAFe framework, and Nexus, which is the Scrum.org version of Scrum at the enterprise level. Basically, these are frameworks that are absolutely necessary, and you can see that in order to for enterprises to integrate and to expand agile and use agility, let's say, for other roles besides just the development teams. You can see that 33% from 0, we went from 0 to 33% in the survey. 2 years ago it was like 2%, and this year the data showed that SAFe is being adopted by 33% of the participants. So that's a fast growth introduction. It's becoming a relevant aspect of the agile adoption journeys these days. So very quickly, another thing I did in the data, and I'm just going to show a few things of these, that what do the expert firms, those that are, these are organizations that have basically pushed agile out to more than 20% of their teams, and to more than 50% of their teams, and they're successful with it. Well, what they're doing is, you can see that basically they are working and being successful on all of those that we saw being barriers, critical barriers. You can see that the expert firms are basically having less trouble with these impediments because they've dealt with them. So they've worked on people behavioral change. They have change programs going on as they introduce Agile. They do work on getting product owners with good skills and right skills. They train them to do that. They train them with a minimum viable product concept. They make sure that product owners are always present on the teams. They get the people, coaches from the outside, but they also train their people to have more skills. They do deal with cross-functional teams. You can see that they suffer, the expert teams suffer less from that because they are working in a cross-functional. So basically, most of those that you saw being the impediments are things that the expert firms do better. And also, but when we talk about scaling, they actually scale in both directions. It's in doing more of the practices, the 5 practices plus the 3 in downstream, so the 5 practices being the shorter duration study, Scrum meetings, product owner, and so forth, and the downstream practices. And they also do other practices, of course. Here are just the ones that we kind of defined a minimum number to say if you do these, you're categorized as being a good doing some being effective with Agile. You can see that basically the expert firms do more of it, right? They do more practices in terms of Agile. They mix and match better the different practices, but they also are replicating this out throughout the organization and getting more teams involved with it. And last but not least, they also do one more thing, which is the way budgeting is done. With Agile, this is another big change that organizations go through, and it's one of the biggest impediments sometimes from an executive perspective, which says, well, these Agile teams, we do budgeting, we need to know exactly what's going to happen, what's going to be delivered, when it's going to be delivered, and how it's going to be delivered. Well, with Agile, you kind of have to relax the iron triangle concept, and you can fix dates, you can fix costs, but you have to keep a scope variable. So then it becomes important to measure predictive, to measure how predictive you're going to be, so that you can improve that predictability and show that you're becoming more predictable in terms of how much features you're going to be developing and delivering over time. Some organizations do that. Some organizations are introducing also evolutionary budgeting, adjusting their budgets. These are all big changes that organizations are doing. I wrote recently a recent research around metrics for Agile, and it's the build the right things better and faster with modern application delivery metrics. And you'll see that they're introducing also value metrics. They're also connecting the outcomes more to the business. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Andy for Ryan to actually kick off his part.
Thanks, Diego. And yep, I think Ryan should be ready. So Ryan, over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot. So we're going to start off with a quick rhetorical question, considering I don't think anybody's off of mute for the webinar. But we're going to start off with what was Rally's original name. And as we go through this transformation into the CA organization, CA Technologies, Rally as an organization, our product is now called Agile Central, but our mission and our goals has not changed as part of the CA family. We go back to in Rally's history. Rally's original name was F4 Technologies, factor of 4 technologies. In fact, if you look real hard in some of our SaaS platform, you can even still find URLs that are dedicated to that F4 Technologies brand. What did we mean by factor of 4? What we really meant was, if you read any of the original Scrum books, you read some of the we called the Scrum Color Book. If you remember that book, it had all of the different colors on the front of it. We were talking 15 years ago about the fact that Agile could give you a factor of 4 improvement on your ability to deliver value to your customers. Over the last 15 years, I think we've backed off on that a little bit. When you talk to consultants about Agile, they're definitely talking about improving your teams, improving your organization. But nobody's really talking about that factor of 4. I'd like to bring that back a little bit as part of the Agile mission and say we can improve your ability to deliver to your customers. We can improve the quality of your products. We can improve your organization's value delivery. And a factor of 4 is something we should consider. Now, in our experience working with Agile customers over the last 15 to 20 years, what I would tell you is that our coaches have had the privilege of working with a lot of companies that have had 5 to 10 years experience working in the Agile realm. And we've had the experience of working with these companies not only from a perspective of helping them improve their practices, but actually going in and re-baselining their practices overall. So we're going to talk a little bit about the things we've seen inside of these customers that have been doing Agile for 5, 10 years, and some of the negative behaviors we've seen. Agile's not all roses and puppies. We really do still have to consider the evolutionary process of human behavior when we look at how we keep organizations on track and how we get to that factor of 4. So we're going to talk a little bit about these companies. We've got 3 separate companies. We've got a large internet property, a company that we worked with several years ago with over 10,000 engineers, 10 years of doing Agile, and hundreds if not thousands of Agile teams. And one of the things that we noticed while working with them was almost a complete lack of ability to manage work across the organization. We had definitely hit that concept of an independent team, but unfortunately this organization didn't have the ability to really start to focus those multiple teams on a vision and an output that was valuable to their customers. Look at a second company, a mid-sized SaaS company in early 2014. 160 engineers, 14 plus years of doing Agile, 15 teams, and a long history of experimental Agile practices. Unfortunately, some of the behaviors that evolved inside of this organization were a resistance to any management of work, right? And any management of work across the different product lines that had been created at that time. An Agile for engineers mindset. This is a dangerous thing. When I took on Agile 15 years ago for my team, I was an engineer on the team, and I will tell you that it was highly as a defense mechanism. It was something that I could use to manage my work and get my management team to trust me, but let me do what I want to do. Well, Agile is definitely a good mechanism for building healthy teams, but Agile as a defense mechanism can be dangerous, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Our third company here is a 120-year-old insurance company with 200 plus engineers, only 2 years of Agile experience, 18 teams, and this is a success story. Now consider the differences between 2 modern technology companies that have been doing Agile for 10 and 15 years versus a mid-size 120-year-old insurance company that is truly getting that 4x value out of their Agile implementation. And we're going to walk through why that insurance company was able to get more value out of their Agile implementation than high-tech companies that have been doing it for years. So how does this happen? Well, let's walk through the problem a little bit. And there are many different problems that we need to consider. The first one I call the evolution to the easy. Agile as an evolutionary process encourages teams to evolve their practices to be better and better on a day-to-day basis. Unfortunately, evolution doesn't necessarily, especially evolution in behavior, doesn't necessarily always evolve towards the easiest or the best thing for you. We consider every time you drive through the McDonald's drive-through, you're probably choosing the easiest option, not necessarily the best option. Human behavior evolution is not something that is guided by what's best for us. It's guided by what's easiest in most parts. As you consider the idea that a scrum master on a team and coaches in an organization, their job is to be that little angel on the shoulder of the team and say, hey, this is what's best for you, not what's easiest. We have to consider teams and we have to control that evolution towards the best practices for the company. We're a little bit about that. Developer-only Agile, as I said before, when I first started Agile, I started it from a perspective of defending my team. We've seen a lot of Agile teams in the world evolve to a perspective on this is our team, don't mess with it, this is what we do, and to a large degree, the people who are advocates of Agile come from the development community, and so you see these teams being formed that are all developers, only developers, and Agile is used as a defense mechanism. When you see a team that has only engineers on it, you don't have testers, you don't have UX professionals, you don't have product managers or product owners on the team. You have to consider that is that truly a team or is it just a group of people working together on code? We consider other things like management. and the concepts that we've seen. We also see, if you look at the Valley, you look at a lot of hotbeds of software development in the US and in India and a few other places, developer unemployment is incredibly low. So when you talk to us managers who are working with engineering teams, we of course are very concerned about the morale and the and retention of our engineering talent. But on the other side of that, we can't let Agile become a movement against what's best for our customers. And we've seen a lot of this happen in the Agile realm, where Agile is being usurped with the concepts of team being some kind of revolutionary movement. We really need to understand that this is a means to an end, and that end is the value our customers get out of our products. Another portion of this that we've seen in a lot of companies, we've seen this evolve in the Agile world. Even when you look at the Scrum framework, we moved away from the word commitment. We have to consider that commitment was a very powerful mechanism of Scrum. It was also something that could be abused. When you look at Agile teams that were committing to their 2-week sprints or their 2-week iterations, when we held that against them when they didn't meet those goals, we started to create behavioral patterns that were negative for those teams. When you look at those teams, you have to consider that commitment is still incredibly valuable. We need to look at how our teams are committing to their iterations of their sprints and delivering those. We need to look at a bigger level, though, how the organization is committing to their roadmap and to the features they're going to deliver on a quarterly basis or on a 6-month basis or release cycle basis. So commitment is something we absolutely need to continue to build into our Agile frameworks, and we need to consider that as part of what we're doing. Matrix organizations. So as a previous Agile consultant and as a leader of an Agile organization, what I can tell you is that we have to consider the organizational structure. Now, as an Agile consultant, what I would also tell you is that coming in the door, it was suicide as a consultant for me to walk into your organization and say, hey, I want you to change your entire org structure to be Agile, right? That scares everyone. It creates all kinds of fear and uncertainty inside of the organization. It's not something we need to do at the beginning of an Agile transformation, but it's something you need to consider throughout the whole Agile transformation to be successful. What we see a lot of is teams that are built that have 6 different managers. We have organizations that have matrix structures where people may be working on the same product, but they report into completely different organizations. We need to consider how we build an Agile organization in the future. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Resource management. Resource management is a drug. It's something we fight against all the time when working with Agile organizations and traditional organizations. The idea that even inside of Agile Central here, we run into big problems. We may have a customer-facing issue. We may have an outage. Hopefully we don't have an outage, but we may have all kinds of things that it's the easiest possible solution is to grab a couple of your best people, grab them, put them on a quick team, have them solve the problem, and then continue to have them work on those types of issues, right? Unfortunately, what we've also done in that easy solution is made decisions around the priorities of 4 other features that those teams may be working on. When we look at large organizations, we do resource management wholesale. We do it as a process of portfolio management. And what you're really doing there is mix and matching people and teams on a yearly basis. And that yearly basis doesn't allow those teams and those organizations to gel and really truly get that 4x improvement overall in the organization. Resource management is something that we need to design systems that allow us to flow work through persistent organizations, not flow people to problems. We will show you a little bit of that as we start to talk about Agile at scale. If anybody has a chemistry background, this is the chemical symbol for reactivity. We see this in a lot of Agile organizations where we've built great teams, we've gotten those teams onto their localized backlogs, but unfortunately, because of the fact that we don't have anything controlling their work in progress at a higher level, we have teams that are essentially doing order taker work. They're taking the highest priority items at all times and just constantly reshuffling priorities, not allowing them to really see that forest for the trees. And in that organization, you see a lot of hidden work and a lot of what I would call, well, what the psychology field would call learned helplessness. The idea that I can only take what's given to me and that I don't control my world around me. And so this is some of the negative outcomes we see in Agile teams when we don't consider the larger system as a whole for improvement of the organization. So let's talk about some of the solutions, because I don't want to leave you in the pit of despair and say Agile is not the answer, because a lot of these things are really how you guide your Agile transformation throughout time. It's not that Agile gives you these outcomes, it's that Agile left on to its own devices will not necessarily give you perfect outcomes. So let's talk about some of the solutions. First things first, Scrum, Kanban, the basic Agile frameworks are incredibly valuable from a perspective of a prepackaged set of behaviors that teams should follow so that they can maintain a set of things that are good for them. Now, we see a lot of Agile teams take on Scrum, take on Kanban, and take on some of these simple Agile frameworks, and then quickly move towards evolving away from a lot of their practices. When you see Scrum teams that aren't doing tasks, well, they believe they don't need to do tasks. When you see Scrum teams that aren't sizing their stories, well, maybe they've evolved away from that. But a lot of teams choose to do that evolution not from a perspective of what's best, but from what's easiest. You see this a lot when you think about teams missing their iteration or sprint commitments and deciding to go to Kanban instead because it doesn't have iterations or sprints. You see teams a lot in story sizing where they're not very good at story sizing at first, and so instead they follow the Agile movement of no sizes or no estimates and decide to just move away from that and do story count or something along those lines. You see that a lot in Scrum when teams find tasking to be too tedious, and so they choose to move to just using story sizes too early. These are all examples of evolution to the easiest possible practices, not the best. When we're working with organizations that have been doing Agile for a long time and they need help doing Agile better, we immediately focus on a lot of these back to basics activities and start to re-baseline the teams in basic Scrum, basic Kanban, and then work on helping them evolve from there. When we look at transforming an organization, even organizations that have been doing Agile for a long time, we're really saying you need a scaled framework. Even if you're 10 people, you need a way of understanding your work at a higher than the team level. Now that may be a very simple slice of something like the SAFe framework or the LESS framework or the Nexus framework. But really what you're looking at is what are the things that are bigger than the teams? How do I organize the features on our roadmap? How do I build a roadmap? How do I then rely on that roadmap to start to communicate with my customers? How do I look at a bigger scale than just the team? How do I look at the product that I'm delivering and start to make commitments on that as well? We use our Ready, Sync, Go framework here at CA to help guide our customers through that transformation at scale. And we're not necessarily specific to the framework that we use, although a lot of our customers are asking for Scaled Agile Framework or SAFe. We definitely work in a lot of these other frameworks because what they're giving us is a guidance towards a larger set of behaviors and practices and a larger organizational structures that we can create. So one of the key skill sets there that we like to bring back is program and product management. Now, when you look at certain organizations like our IT organizations, lots of times we call this program management. When you look at software development and product organizations, of course, we call it product management. But it's a key set of skill sets that are valuable in guiding your overall roadmap and understanding how you're going to build a larger set of products. Now, of course, you see this a lot more in large organizations that are doing Agile across multiple teams, but even small organizations can benefit from the concept of a quarterly roadmap or the concept of using features as a way of organizing your stories, or the concept of having product managers who are working directly with customers versus product owners who are working directly with the teams. So understanding this different level of structure that the different scaled Agile frameworks bring us is important to then building something that really gets us towards that ability to create a 4X organization. Limiting WIP is huge. And funny enough, starting at the top is the first place you want to look when you're looking to limit WIP across your organization. So understanding that the number of different projects you're running absolutely has an impact on the delivery of your teams. Now consider this at Rally, which I can say Rally because this was 2 years ago. We went from having 19 parallel initiatives or projects at one time down to 3. And that one movement all things else being held pretty consistent, we're able to double the throughput of our organization. So consider that output. If you can limit the amount of projects that you jam into the system or the initiatives that you put into the system, you can double the output of your engineering teams at the bottom. You absolutely should be looking at all levels of the system, including the top, for limiting your work in progress. If you can't make commitments on a quarterly roadmap to your customers, you need to consider how you're doing product management inside of your organization. And I say that because what we truly start to look at is above the teams, there's this concept of how do we commit to our customers? How do we bring commitment back into what we're doing? And we need to be able to figure out ways to create agile roadmaps that we're discussing the future of our products with our customers. At Agile Central here, we create a 3-quarter rolling roadmap that is feature-based. So these are the things that we're going to deliver to you each quarter. And of course, the first quarter, the one that we've gone through our planning process on, is the most reliable. The next quarter is something that we're projecting. And the third quarter out is the future of the product, larger, bigger chunks of things that we're doing. But the key element here is when we're looking at your Agile transformation, you need to be able to make more than just commitments at the team level. You need to be able to commit across your organization and to your customers at a feature-by-feature level, something larger than what the teams are working on. Big room planning. So this is I would attribute this back to Scaled Agile Framework or SAFe, although there's been a lot of organizations doing this for a number of years, and in fact Extreme Programming brought what they called release planning into the Agile process many years ago, that this is somewhat of a variant of. Big room planning is absolutely key. Even if you only have 2 teams, you have 3 teams, doing a quarterly big room planning activity, or what SAFe calls it PI planning, program increment planning, is a key activity in changing your organization towards Agile for the better, driving people towards making quarterly commitments, but also driving the organization towards understanding what its capacity is, what we can actually accomplish on a quarterly basis, and understanding what is our ability to deliver that to our customers, and then making commitments on that is a huge lever in changing your organization for the better. When we did a lot of reformation on Rally's process 2 years ago, this was the pivot point for us. Using big room planning to coordinate across the organization was absolutely key. Now, understanding that the big room planning procedures as well can be used across a whole company to help drive portfolio processes is also a very powerful mechanism in driving Agile for the whole business. Now, it's time to consider organizational structures. So as I said, as a consultant, it was suicide for me to walk in the door and say that you needed to change your organizational structure to be Agile. But if you've been doing Agile for a while, or if you're considering an Agile transformation now is the time to consider organizational change as part of your transformation. And you need to be considering that as aligning your organization to more Agile practices. Well, what does that mean? Well, in a lot of organizations, that means making sure that your engineering and product management teams are well tied together and co-located. Understanding that the leadership structure of your R&D organization needs to be built in an Agile fashion. And we can definitely, work with customers in a lot of this realm nowadays to help build Agile organizations. It wouldn't be a good deck if I didn't have something controversial in there. So comparing evolution to intelligent design is, of course, a fun controversy. But when we're talking about organizations, what we're truly saying here is your Agile evolution needs to be designed and it needs to be managed by a group of people. And we call this the center of excellence. You may call it your coaching core. You may call it a lot of different things. In fact, a lot of PMOs are actually in charge of this center of excellence. But this group is a group of people dedicated to the coaching, the organizational change, the training of the organization, while owning the process and the platform for delivering that, and really truly creating a community of people involved in actually guiding that Agile transformation forward. One of the strong anti-patterns we see here is that organizations will run an Agile transformation as a project. And as soon as that's over, they defund this group of people. You need to continue to fund your Agile Center of Excellence as long as you're doing Agile, because these people are the angel on the shoulder of the whole organization saying, this is what's best for the organization, this is what's best for the teams, let's evolve to do better. You should be continually measuring and transforming. We use our insights framework inside of the Agile Central product to help evolve our teams, but there's also a 1,000 other metrics that we gather around the performance of our organization, and we're constantly looking at how we evolve our whole organization, not just the individual teams, although we do focus heavily on team practices. How do we evolve our whole organization to do Agile better? And that is a key element of Agile at scale. So that next level of Agile is truly around transforming the whole organization, transforming for the better of the organization, not just the betterment of the teams, and understanding that our customers are the ultimate goal. Delivering value, that 4x value to our customers, is the ultimate goal of your Agile transformation. It's something we shouldn't back off in the Agile world. I think we're good from there. So I think we're ready to take some questions and use the last 9 minutes here to go through some of our questions with the group.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ryan, and thank you, Diego. Tremendous presentation, and we're already seeing some questions come in, so just a reminder for everybody, please feel free to enter any questions that you have in the question tab, and we'll get to as many as we can before the top of the hour. So with that, I'm going to jump straight into our first question. Which is a very simple one, nice and easy for you both. If you don't yet have support from your leadership to scale Agile, what's the best way to get their buy-in? A nice, easy question to start with.
So I can jump in a little bit on that one, Diego. I'd love your guidance on this one as well. What I would say is that one of the key activities, that big room planning, is one of those things that we love to show our customers. We invite customers in the doors, and imagine, of course, working with your teams to try and build your next quarter's plan, but also having your customers watch you do it. It makes you a little bit more crisp in how you do it. But we'd love to have customers come in and actually view these activities, because it is an immediate breakthrough for many of our leaders in these organizations that, wow, this can be incredibly valuable for your organization. One of the things that I would highly recommend, if you can't pull your leaders out and actually go to a company that is doing this, is attempt to do this the first time and start to get that behavior change going. Just say, hey, let's try this out. Let's try and get some teams coordinated. Maybe bring in a coach to help you with this for once, for a couple of days, just to get this kick-started. That big room planning event, or the PI planning, is an incredible lever in changing organizations for the better in a scaled environment.
Yeah, there's a number of ways. This is a very important question, by the way, because if you don't have leadership commitment, it's really hard to keep that transformation and keep that center of excellence or the investment that you have to make sure that everybody, the teams that are trying to adopt Agile are getting the resources and the help that they need. So the first thing is you have to communicate with the leadership, and sometimes it's just a lack of understanding on the leadership side. I think we've gone through a lot of that now, but there's still issues with, some leaders don't really understand the true value and the principles of Agile, and they're really basic, and those values and principles of lean principles and Agile principles, probably they get better the lean principles if they're high-level executives, because perhaps they've gone through some business, Lean Six Sigma exercises in the past, and it connects with them. If you talk about, what all we're trying to do is we're eliminating waste, we're trying to focus on value, we're going to be delivering more value for the business, and show as much as possible and demonstrate what adopting Agile really means and what it doesn't mean, because there's a lot of confusion sometimes at the executive level on the expectations of this. And then, of course, you can bring them to places to places where this is happening, as Ryan was saying. There's, you can try it for yourself. There are some teams that kind of invest before they go to the CIO or to the executives. They actually pull together a small team to get some results and show how the solution is. And in some other cases, you're just lucky because Agile is the only result you have. Projects have been done many times in waterfall. I've seen this happen, keep failing, and the only alternative is try a new way of doing it. And fail fast, show that you can improve things. And so I think it really is, basically a lot of communication, and making them understand the fundamental principles and values, I would say, of Agile.
Oh, I was just going to say I really like your focus on lean there. I would also say that part of every Agile transformation is selling that Agile transformation at the beginning, and so getting one team or one organization rolling and then showing the results is huge. And then also tying that back to lean concepts around the evolution and continuous improvement of the organization is usually speaking the right language for our upper level managers. So definitely results driven and speaking the right language is key to that pitch.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. Try and squeeze in at least one more question. This one's coming from Sylvia. She says, what could be some ideas to scale Agile in your company if you find out that many of the projects are using the client's methodologies and the client's not Agile? And she gave an example of project leadership at the client side, the development team's part of the company that she works for.
It sounds like that Sylvia is coming from probably a system integrator or consulting organization, I guess.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, so I actually wrote a couple of pieces of research there, but the fundamental thing for clients cannot just, I mean, the client has to be absolutely bought on to the concept, otherwise it's not going to work, because they do have to, working in Agile, especially with an outsourcer, means changing the way they work together, the milestones changes, the metrics are different. They have to make sure that they actually are accountable with product owners that are leading the initiative from a business perspective. And if that doesn't happen, it's not going to happen. So this goes back even to the previous question. Like in that case, you have to make sure that the purchasing office guys, the CFO, the people that manage contracts, all those people, they do need to understand the basics, and that they're going to be working together, they're going to be getting things differently. It's even, the traditional waterfall contracts don't even work. So that in itself is a big topic, and outsourcing Agile, clients cannot just outsource Agile if they don't understand it first, or if the leaders don't get what the benefits are, what the value of this is. So it needs, again, some sort of business case, perhaps, at least at that project level, and understanding from the client.
I would also say that I completely agree. I would also say that there's some elements of scaled Agile framework that you could use to help with this. So understanding that you're building a roadmap with the outside company, asking them to do a big room planning style event where you actually get their stakeholders and your stakeholders together and build a quarterly plan. Working as features that something you manage, but that user stories that they are the things that they are managing, and coordinating those back together. There's a lot of elements of that line between program and team inside of the Scaled Agile framework that could be useful for managing these types of relationships. And so it's something to consider just from a set of tools that you could use there.
Excellent. Thank you. I wish we had time for more questions, but we are almost up to the top of the hour. I did promise everybody that I would provide information on how to claim your PDU from this session. So, as most of you are probably aware, PMI has changed its CCR program in the last couple of months. So, to claim a PDU for this now, you need to go to the self-directed learning section and claim a PDU from the technical category, which is part of the education section now that everything has been split into those two different areas within the PDU CCR system. So that information will also be contained in the email that you get tomorrow, but it's a self-directed learning PDU from the technical category within education, and you can just claim that yourselves. So the only thing left for me to do is say a very big thank you to both Diego and Ryan for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. We learned a heck of a lot about Agile, a lot about the survey, and a little bit about chemistry as well, and I'm very grateful for all of that. So thank you both. Thank you for everyone who attended, and join us again for the next projectmanagement.com webinar soon. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.